we'll be doing introductions of the individuals that are going to be speaking today, myself included. Talk through, as I said, the Aspen Ideas Festival, what a local ideas festival is, opportunities for alumni, and then we will be sure to save time for Q&A at the end. And for any folks that are wanting to ask questions throughout the process, definitely feel free to type questions into the chat box so that we can address those at the end and so that you don't lose them. All right, here we go. So just to give a brief overview of who our speakers are today. Oops, let me click through. We have Marcos Silva, who's a 2016 educator from the Rio Grande Valley, and he co-founded STXI, which was the local ideas festival that he and his student Michael Mireles started last year. So this year, STXI is in its second year. It's a community initiative promoting pride of place and creating a sense of community for people in the Rio Grande Valley. As a Bezos Scholar educator, Marcos has done all sorts of things, including joining TED Ed as an innovative educator last year for his work on STXI, but also he has co-founded a program called Border Kids Code and has continued to do incredible work in the Rio Grande Valley. He does love mariachi and sports. Marcos, if you have your audio ready to go, we'd love to hear from you at this time.
Can you guys hear me?
All right, going on. Okay, just to give you a little bit of information about myself. So I have been managing the Bezos Scholars Program for the past 3 years. This will be my 4th Aspen Ideas Festival in this year to come. And I really love the opportunity that comes with getting to know each new cohort of young people because each of the young people in our group is especially passionate about different topics, which is the fun part. And so it's fun to get to know new personalities and new passions and see how every scholar wants to marry that passion with the community need because it manifests itself in different ways each year. So I grew up in Montana. I'm actually here in Montana today. Got a foot of snow yesterday, but I've been living in Seattle for a lot of years now, and I also served in the Peace Corps in Nicaragua. My degree is in Spanish, Latin American Studies, and I went to school Seattle Pacific University. So just give you a little overview on who we are. All right, so to jump in with 2 feet, the Bezos Scholars Program experience has been around. This will be our 14th cohort in 2018. And sorry about that. This will be our 14th cohort in 2018. And we have been around for all of these years, although the program itself has evolved from one year to the next. The very first year at the Aspen Ideas Festival, Mike and Jackie Bezos, founders of the Bezos Family Foundation, went to the Aspen Ideas Festival and loved the offerings that were available there. It's a rich experience for dialogue, for conversation, for challenging your own belief systems, and for talking that out with others. And they loved every bit of that, but felt that the one very important piece that was missing was youth voice. The exciting part about it, and Sabrina, like you said, about it just being different than other summer opportunities, I think is the opportunity to work with your educators and all of the individuals at the Ideas Fest as peers on these conversations. Because really it is a cool opportunity for personal growth, as well as developing some of these personal leadership skills that we're going to ask you to implement when you go back and lead a team of peers in response to a community need. But before we get into the Aspen piece, perhaps it's worth mentioning a little bit about the application process itself and how we'll get to Aspen. So important info about eligibility. So we are asking, to be an eligible applicant, we're looking at public high school juniors that are attending high schools that have at least 30% free and reduced lunch rate at the school itself. And so we're using that data from the previous year's reporting. And also we're prioritizing schools that haven't had a Bezos Scholar in the previous 2 years. And because we do offer seed funding for up to 3 years at a school, once the scholar has started a festival there, we do try to spread the opportunity around, but certainly encourage students to apply from those schools. The application process is set up to mirror a college application, and that it's just really good practice to know what kinds of things you'll be asked for when you get to the college application itself. We are also looking for students that will be at their same high school in the coming academic year and have demonstrated leadership in their school and community. And there are lots of different ways that people can demonstrate leadership in their community. And sometimes that looks like, being presidents of clubs, but sometimes that looks like just seeing a community need that you needed to address and respond to, and you went and took care of that of your own volition, and maybe rallied some of your peers, classmates, or teachers to help with that. And sometimes that looks like work with your community group or your church or religious group. And sometimes that looks like service projects that you take on as a family. Leadership can be lots of different things, certainly sports included. We're also asking students that have taken a PSAT, an SAT, an ACT, or an ACT Expire test, as we're looking for students that are bound for higher education. So while we're not so much looking at the number itself, we are looking to see students that have demonstrated interest in pursuing education beyond high school. And for that same reason, because we are looking for academic rigor, we're looking for students that have taken at least one or are currently enrolled in an advanced placement course, an international baccalaureate course, or college level coursework that you can show transcripts for. Another important piece of eligibility is being able to attend all of the program dates. So we will be in Aspen this year from June 23 to 29. And we need participation at all of those days for both the student and the educator that will accompany them. Beyond that, in the coming academic year, in the 2018-2019 academic year, we do monthly webinars. We also do monthly check-in phone calls just to touch base on progress on the Local Ideas Festival. And we do a grant application process for the seed funding. So there is some paperwork and check-ins involved in that as well. An important thing to remember about the application is that it's really two parts. We have the student piece, which is a lot of what I just spoke about, including some short answer and essay pieces as well. But the second important part is your supporters. So we're looking there. Each applicant will need 2 letters of recommendation on their behalf. We also need the principal to complete a portion of the application, saying that they're aware that their student is applying and supports that effort. Just knowing what a lift it can be to create a Local Ideas Festival, it's very important to show that your administration is behind you on that project. And Marcos can speak a little bit more to the educator piece of the application, but for each student that applies, we do ask that they nominate an educator that will be their supporting educator scholar, both in Aspen and throughout the year to come. And all of those pieces, including supporters, letters of recommendation, and the principal, need to be submitted no later than February 9, 2018. Marcos, if you're able, could you just maybe speak a little bit to, as an educator, kind of how you felt about supporting Michael in this process, but also some things that you think might be helpful for other educators to know that are looking to support students as educator nominees?
Yeah, so when Michael first told me that he was applying for the Bezos Scholar Program, it was really an interest of him to continue like the leadership activities that he was doing on campus, and he really wanted to move that like onto the community. And so when I was having conversations with my student, it was really more about like where he was guiding his like work towards and how that aligned to my classroom, right? And how that aligned to the work that I was doing on campus. And so I jumped on board with him right away, because his work was very much about like personal development, and I think that was great to have like at the time when I was in a classroom having conversations at the time I taught AVID, so it was like advancement via individual determination, which is like a college readiness course. And his interest in applying to this program and the work that he wanted to do through this opportunity was very much something that I was interested in jumping on board with. And so for me, the application process, it just made sense. It was almost like an extension of my classroom that was going onto the community. And so that was kind of why I was really excited to apply with my student.
Awesome, thank you. And then just in case we didn't get this mentioned earlier or that the internet had cut out when I said this, so we're selecting 12 juniors from across the United States. We also have a partnership with the African Leadership Academy. We bring 5 students and an educator from the African Leadership Academy, which is a school in Johannesburg that has students from the entire continent. So we'll all gather together in Aspen, 12 students from the States, 12 educators from each of their schools, and the students from African Leadership Academy. And this cohort of 2018 will join more than 300 alumni to date. So it's really becoming a part of a family, as we'll get a little bit deeper into as we go here. So talking about the week in Aspen, which we already previewed a little bit, but mostly it's a lot of fun. It's a beautiful place to be, and they are long days because we fit a lot of things in. We are hosting our own leadership curriculum concurrently with the Aspen Ideas Festival. So both students and educators participate in all the offerings that the Aspen Ideas Festival has to offer. So you're welcome to choose each talk or plenary session that is of interest to you. And sometimes folks go in a group, and sometimes it's great to go by yourself. But we especially encourage people to attend sessions that really fall outside of what you already know, or that strongly challenge the ideas that you think you already hold. Because while all of these sessions will be posted online after the festival is over, you are able to ask questions. And it is well known now, 14 years in, that Bezos Scholars ask some of the best questions of the presenters. So that's an exciting aspect of the festival, is to get to go be a part of a dialogue with some of the world's most premier thinkers, leaders, politicians, artists, scientists, mathematicians, and beyond. So as I shared earlier, Aspen Ideas Festival this year, the dates are June 23 through June 29. And we are there all day, each of those days, in Aspen. And we do offer some very neat scholar exclusive experiences in addition to just attending the Ideas Fest. So we host a breakfast and a lunch with a notable speaker each day. So that's a Q&A session that's just unique to scholars, with different speakers every day of our week that we're there. And maybe, Marcos, you could speak a little bit to what that was like as an educator to attend the festival, both with your student, but also just as an educator for your own professional development.
Yeah, I think that at least the breakfast and lunch portions of our experience were perhaps the most impactful on my end, because it was a time in where you did have these like notable thinkers and workers, and so you had a time and a space to almost push questions on them and have them respond like directly to you and have a conversation with your group about, you know, whatever the topic was, whether it was like gravity or you know, it was like a range of topics that I guess in my end, like I never thought I was interested about until I was in that moment and just kind of consumed with this experience that really just kind of put you in a position of letting your mind explore. And so as an educator, one, that was like, it was almost like the best professional development I've ever received. And then two, like second component was just trying to make sure that like my student was also like taking really cool, like taking this experience in like a meaningful way. And so it was almost like a dual participation, right? Like I was trying to gain as much as I could for my own like career out of these lunches and breakfast experiences, but I was also making sure that that Michael, my student, was also taking this opportunity to kind of develop himself and making sure that he was fully engaged and fully invested in these experiences.
Thanks, Marcos. It's also probably worth mentioning, since we did say that Aspen is a beautiful place, that it's also at 8,000 feet above sea level. So we are at elevation. They are warm days and they are cool evenings, and we are in the mountains. So it's a beautiful space, but it's also very important to come hydrated, stay hydrated during the week, and get lots of sleep. We also, it's named Aspen for the beautiful aspen trees that are everywhere. So it does often look a bit like winter in the summer, with all of the cottonwood and aspen seeds that are piling up in the streets, which is kind of fun, since Aspen is also a beautiful mountain ski town. Okay, so after Aspen, we send folks back to their respective communities and then ask them to create a local ideas festival. And this came about after that initial cohort of students attended the Aspen Ideas Festival with Mike and Jackie, and then after that year, they decided, you know, it's wonderful that we can bring all of these students to Aspen and that they can have this experience. And then beyond that, that their educators could join them and partake as well, how do we bring this back to their individual communities? So that's where the ask really began, of asking students and educators to take Aspen back home. So here's just kind of a sample of some different local ideas festivals that are fun that I thought I would highlight today. So starting in the top left, you see a crew of folks wearing the Unraveling Gender t-shirt. So that was a 2016 scholar. Her name is Ana Acevedo. She's from New Rochelle, New York, and her local ideas festival was about breaking down barriers and creating some space for conversation, especially in regard to gender. So they did celebrate a day of panel discussions and participate in their LGBTQ Pride Parade, but in a tangible goal that they set for themselves that year was to do away with the gendered graduation robes. Before Anna and her team tackled this project, girls wore one color and boys wore another at their high school graduation. And after that, they started this project and put time, effort, and a lot of conversation with their administration, who was very supportive of the work that they were putting into and the way they came at it. Now students are able to choose which of those two school colors they'd like to wear, and it's not gender specific. So it's just a fun, tangible result that came out of their first year. They're now in their second year, going strong and evolving as a program. Just to the right there, you'll see Pablo Hockey. He's a 2014 scholar from Davenport, Iowa, and his project was called Our City Movement. They were wanting to gather a lot of the millennial voice in the city of Davenport, with a larger youth population than an older population. And they were right at a time when Davenport was making some strong decisions about city planning. And so Pablo and his group rallied some of their peers, colleagues, not only from their high school, but area high schools as well, to participate in that city planning process, attend city planning meetings, meet with city council on several occasions, and help to redesign some of the parks in downtown Davenport areas in a way that millennials would continue to engage in what the city has to offer. Just to the right there, you'll see Debbie Gonzalez. She is from Miami, Florida, originally from Cuba. In Miami, Florida, her festival was called Fly Fest, and it was to create a space for immigrants to feel validated in their experience and to show them some of the opportunities and benefits available to them as immigrants in the immediate community. This included access to degree validation from their countries of origin, as well as attending some Know Your Rights workshops. They had some incredible, powerful speakers speak to the process of becoming an immigrant in the country, and then just how that struggle of establishing yourself all over again actually made them a much stronger candidate for jobs, for graduate school, etc. So this first year, she's a 2016 scholar. It was hosted primarily in Spanish. This year, her team, evolving into its second year, is working to bring a lot of those similar services to the Haitian Creole speaking community in Miami, Florida. In the middle, on the bottom there, you'll see some of the folks on the STEAM team. This was a team of scholar Kiona Elliott. She's a 2012 scholar from Oakland Park, Florida. It was one of our first STEAM festivals when STEAM was just starting to become a term. So she actually had a whole week of different activities highlighting those different parts of the STEAM acronym: science, technology, engineering, arts, math, which culminated in a really fun Saturday of integrating all of those different activities together. They were especially gearing high school students to support younger students in engaging in some of those STEAM activities and thinking beyond towards careers. On the bottom left, Marcos, this picture probably looks familiar. This is from STXI Festival last year in McAllen, Texas. And we did speak a little bit about STXI, an opportunity, a space for all of the different flavors, personalities, individuals from the Rio Grande Valley to gather together to speak to the identity of that community and encourage young people to see themselves as a part of that. But to speak a little bit more about local ideas festivals, so what is it? Okay, so it's really a combination of scholars' individual passions with a local community needs. So there is a little bit of groundwork that goes into first understanding what are relevant community needs. What will people respond to in your community? What will people turn out for? What will they attend? And what am I really excited about? So much so that when I speak with other people about it, they too will be excited about it and feel compelled to participate. Local Ideas Festivals have taken on many different shapes and sizes. There is no one number of attendees. There is no one thing that it needs to look like. Sometimes 15 people attend, and sometimes 5,000 people attend. Sometimes it's a one-day experience. Sometimes it's a semester-long program, and everything in between. We have many festivals that center on STEAM, as you've seen, and what the picture to the left here is a slime making day at a STEAM fest with elementary school kids. We also have a lot of festivals that focus on peer-to-peer mentoring, especially in regards to literacy. High school students working with younger students, both in journalism, in writing, in reading. We also have festivals that focus on the environment, healthy bodies and healthy minds. Mental health especially has been a topic in the past few years. And as a broad brush statement, in the past few years, many of our festivals have focused on bringing diverse groups of the community together to have candid conversation, to create empathy, and to tell one another stories, to bring a human face to some really challenging topics. And so how do scholars create local ideas festivals? And I'm sure Marcos will speak more to this, but mostly with a lot of help. So it does take some very driven individuals that know exactly what it is that you're trying to get done, and maybe how you're trying to get there. But certainly it takes the support of a team of peers, both students and educators, especially in support with your administration, perhaps even beyond into your greater community. Also, we as the Bezos Family Foundation offer seed funding to each of these teams. So each team applies through a grant proposal process, which mimics any grant proposal process. So it's a great resume builder in that regard. And we offer $1,000 of seed funding to each school for up to 3 years. So that's a total of $3,000 over the course of 3 years if teams are wanting to reapply for funding, which answers the question, is there funding? So Marcos, maybe would you like to speak a little bit to both how you and your student kind of gathered around the idea of STXI, but then your role as an educator in that and in supporting your student?
Yeah. So my student, and I can kind of, thinking back on it, like, so my student was always really um, engaged in politics. And so he was actually part of the JSA program here on campus, which is the Junior Statement of America organization, which they like go and debate on several like national topics. He was also always like reading like Mexican American literature. And he was always like reading poems and like kind of making sure like he always had a book with him, which is really, really interesting. And he always also like was super social and always like talked to people like almost like a counselor. Like he was always like that friend that like you could turn around and like kind of just have like a conversation about whatever you were like dealing with. And so he was that person like on our campus. And so I think that like based on his personality is really why he was so passionate about STXI. And it's because like our festival was really to create a space for young adults to engage in conversations with local community leaders about like culture, community, and identity. And so obviously his like literature component and like Mexican American studies component came in, and like when we were recruiting speakers for our event, which was he was really looking for speakers who could like give their own experience about being part of our community and sharing their narrative. Like his politics interest really came in when he was like, we used STXI as an expose of like the community resources that we have in our area. And so like through the festival, we were really pushing kids to discover what was available at the community. And so in return, like getting them hopefully interested in being engaged in their own community. And so, all of this with the purpose ultimately of being super proud of being from our area. And so for us, like the passion was always almost like, you can say like the passion was always there. The festival really gave an outlet for us to kind of now share it outside the walls of our classroom, right? And so that's kind of how we came up with the idea of STXI, and those are really the conversations that my student and I had about, okay, what are we really passionate about? And again, it really aligned with what I was doing in my own classroom. So that was really, really neat. In terms of like creating the festival and funding the festival, I think when we realized how passionate we were about what we were doing, I think we just spoke to people very excited, and they were like jumping on board with this. And so we went to like local like organizations that were like the Economic Development Center from one of the surrounding cities. We went to just different businesses and really told them and spoke to them about what we were doing. We went to professors at the local university and like kind of shared our mission and our vision, and little by little they all kind of jumped on board, and I feel like that was really our success of our festival, is just the amount of engagement that we created to kind of put attention into this issue of amplifying like student interest and student voices through our festival. And honestly, like it was really the passion that we had for this topic that kind of led all of that and kind of made everything else fall into place.
Awesome. Thank you. All right. So what happens afterwards? We make it through this year. We go through Aspen in the summer, put all of this work in on the local Ideas Festival during your very busy senior year of high school. And what comes next? And this is where we get into the family part. We have a saying in the Bezos Scholars Program, once a scholar, always a scholar, and we really do our best to create a very familial sense between not only your cohort that you'll meet in Aspen, but with scholars across the board from all the years. So you'll see here a couple pictures of scholars gathered together. On the left, this was a reunion with scholars representing nearly every year of the cohorts that we've had since, let's see, I think 2010 was our oldest year in that picture. And then on the right here is a picture of Bezos scholars that are interning at TED. So we do have some unique opportunities for scholars to apply for internships during their college years and beyond. We do have a connection with TED, and so we often send interns to TED gatherings and events, as well as TED Ed, and are continuing to explore other exciting opportunities that connect with TED, such as TED Fellows, and internships available with some of those fellows teams, be they scientists, artists, or otherwise. We also have a relationship with the Aspen Institute and send interns to programs such as Aspen Challenge, and certainly welcome scholars to apply to any internship at the Aspen Institute with their Bezos Scholars title. So some of the things that you can look forward to is just that continuing network of support. We really do have a great space. We have a private Facebook group for students and one for educators separately to continue the conversation. Whether that's, hey, I'm working on a research project and I would love support on this idea, or hey, I'm in New York for the weekend and who else is here and can we gather for some dinner? And we do support those kinds of regional gatherings. So the foundation loves to bring people together, especially over food. And we do host regional gatherings at least one a year in probably 5 or 6 different regions across the country. This picture here is a picture with Marcos and and his student Michael, as well as part of their STXI team as they were at TED Ed last year as featured speakers, which is an exciting connection. I mentioned about internships and continued support, but we also, knowing that a big part of the Scholars Program is this opportunity to connect with notables, be that at the Aspen Ideas Festival, be that at a TED event, or be that from the comfort of your own home. So we do offer webinars for alumni on a quarterly basis with notable speakers that are just open invitations if you're free and interested and want to tune in to recreate that breakfast lunch kind of experience and have just a private conversation and Q&A with webinars. In regard to educators specifically and alumni, so we're in an exciting place right now where we're at a bit of a critical mass in knowing we have enough educators that are highly engaged in their school communities in different capacities that are seeking out additional opportunities for professional development and support, not only from one another, but from the foundation as well. So right now we're in an exciting development phase of figuring out what's the best way to connect with educators and what are the kinds of things they'd like to connect on. And how can we bring in the right folks to do that? So this is a cool time, and Marcos has very much been a part of this in dreaming up, what can this be and what should it look like in order to best meet the needs of these educators. Another important component of educator alumni is that often, well, nearly always, the Bezos student scholars headed off to university after founding their local Ideas Festival. And so the educator truly remains as a pillar of continuity and support for the local Ideas Festival and iterations of teams in the festival to come. So Marcos, maybe I'll just have you speak a little bit about what the festival has been like in its second year, and how the alumni experience as an educator has been different from that first year of the program.
Yeah, well, one, this picture is seriously giving me all the feels right now. Um, so this picture for me, right? Like I went through the Bezos Scholar Educator program, but then I also went through the TED Innovative Educator Scholar Program, and this moment and like this picture is really like a combination of STXI, my experience with TED Ed, and then like a year or two of STXI, because it was an opportunity for me to take my second year students to networking opportunities that were mainly for Bezos students. And so in this picture, it's like Michael was giving a TED talk. I had the year two STXI students there, in the audience, and it was at TED Ed headquarters. And so it was like really just everything in one spot, and which is really like a testimony of like the opportunities that I've had with this program. The educator, like over the years, is the common factor in this thing, like, right, like the student that you apply with will in 2 years go off to college, and you'll be left behind, almost like pushing this mission that you and that student created, which is, really important that you from the onset realize that this mission that you're creating through this festival is also part of your mission or connected to your classroom, because in a couple of years you will be having new students who will be working towards this as well, but you will be that person that will continue on this tradition or this festival. Year two for me has been exciting, because through the opportunities that the Bezos Foundation has given me, like I've been able to almost include new students that might not have gone through the Bezos program, but are benefiting from this experience that Michael, my student, and I had. And so, one, I'm doing a lot of leadership development now on my campus for this new group of students. And I'm having Michael like help me out with that. And, like for example, now that he's on winter break from college, he came down and we're having a meeting with him. And so we're kind of all, almost like calibrating our mission and making sure that we're all going towards like our original and our what we said we were working on. And so I've been doing a lot of that now with my year two. And two, like they're having these connections that are fostered through the Bezos Foundation, which has really almost created this culture on my campus of like go-getters, right? Like, it started off with Michael, my student, applying for this program, and then now it's like branched out to the new set of group, and people who are maybe not on board right now are looking at this group saying like, oh, like if they can do it, we can do it. So it's really been like a cultural change on my campus that has been really neat to kind of see develop. And so, these opportunities that the foundation offers for us have been very, very impactful, both like with my way of teaching and the engagement that I've had from my students on the work that we're doing.
Excellent. Thank you. That's well said. All right. So I think that we've managed to save enough time for questions, if there are any. Feel free to unmute yourself or type questions into the chat box, whichever is easier for you. What surprised you the most about your experience, Marcos? I'm assuming that question is for you.
Yeah. Um, okay, so this is, I mean, I don't even know if this is the direction of what the answer should be, but so on our flight into Aspen, um, I was sitting in the plane next to this lady, and I sparked a conversation, and she was on her way to the festival, and we spoke for about 30 minutes, and then she asked, like, "Oh, so what do you do?" And I'm like, "Oh, well, I'm a teacher." And then I obviously like asked the same thing. Well, what do you do? And she's like, "Oh, I'm the former director of communications for Michelle Obama." And it was one, like, my first thought was like, "Where's Michael? I need her to meet her. Like, I need him to meet her." And it was like it wasn't even like the start of the festival, and the experiences were already like coming in. And then you go to the hotel, you meet all the other educators, and they're just like some amazing people who, if you ever felt like you were pushing this educational flag like by yourself, like in that room on that first day, you will realize like there's so many other educators who are doing some really cool work that it just makes me come to life, and just like it made me feel like I was in my room. Like it was, these were the people that I wanted to like hang out with. Um, and to me, that was, it might have been because it was like the first experiences that I was having as I was going into this week, but it was very much, it felt like I was learning every moment of this week long experience, and that to me was the most like shocking thing, because I didn't know I could do that, and I didn't know that that was going to happen, and it was, that to me, that was the most surprising thing that I experienced.
Awesome. Thanks, Marcos.
No problem.
All right, let's see if we get any other questions here before we wrap things up today. Okay, 2 questions. We'll take them in order. Marcos, I think also for you, what did you wish you would have known before signing up?
What did I wish I would have known before signing up? I think one, because of the experience that you're gonna have. I don't think I wasn't mentally prepared for it, and I was getting mentally prepared for it as I was living it, and that was challenging. And so when I got the hang of it, like then it just felt like perfect. Um, but the other thing is, uh, you know, I wish I would have understood that the educator is is the person that will carry on this festival in year 2 and year 3 and year 4, and so on and so forth, because I would have invested more time, um, almost developing year 2 students, and in most parts I did. The students that are now leading STXI were involved in STXI last year, but I would have included them more in like the planning and the meetings that we had with community members. And so in retrospect, I think I would have been in a better place just having them almost be leaders from the onset, and not like, oh, we have a brand new set of leaders kind of thing. And so those two things I would have hoped, or would have wished that I knew from before I went into this experience.
Awesome. Thanks, Marcos. And also from Sabrina, how do you choose the candidates? Yes. Again, sorry that I got cut off when I was doing program overview on this, but so choosing candidates. So we have this application process, right? The applications are due at the end, or on February 9. After that, we'll close the application window for new applicants, and then we send all of those applications to an external review committee. So the external review committee, each application is read twice at least by different members of the review committee, and they are looking for different categories of those same things that I spoke about earlier. So academic rigor, demonstrated leadership. It's very important to really polish your application and make sure that it's error-free. We're just looking for students that really love learning for learning's sake. We are looking for students that are curious and also are looking to make an impact on their community in a positive way. So after, and all of the external review committee is vetting applications based on those categories. So they will identify a top set of 24 finalists, and then we, the program team, will do phone interviews with all of the finalists. From that point, we send our finalists and the feedback from phone interviews back to the selection committee, and they do another pass. So between the selection committee and those phone interviews with the program team, we combine that information to identify 12 candidates as well as 2 alternates, just in case, from across the states. And we are always trying to keep an eye towards creating a cohort that will have really lovely conversation, difference in opinion, difference in idea, difference in lived experience, to really contribute to what the Aspen Ideas Festival is all about, which is that spirit of inquiry and dialogue. Hope that answers your question. More information about the selection process, especially dates and when you will expect to hear back at different parts in the process, including when we host phone interviews, when finalists are announced, and when we start doing orientation before Aspen. All of those dates are found on our website on the Apply to be a Bezos Scholar tab. Yes, okay. Any other questions today before we thank people for their time?
Can I add to your response?
Of course, yes.
So I also think that the foundation does a really good job at finding genuine people. And so during the one experience that my student shared with me was that he always said he was a really good he was really good at saying cow jokes, right? And in the interview, he tells me, he's oh, that popped up, and they asked me, tell me a cow joke. And it's and so it's really, it really speaks a lot to the foundation in my eyes, because they really try to, if you say you're really good at this, or if you're interested in this, they believe you and they treat you as if they were your family, and they'll ask you about it. And I think that just being very real about who you are and the place that you are in your life right now and what you're learning about and discovering, the foundation does a really good job at bringing that out from people. And yeah, I love that part about the foundation.
Marcos, I'm glad you brought that up. That does make me think of a pro tip, I guess, if you will, when it gets to finalist and phone interview time. So as you said, in your case, your student Michael did share with us that he excels at cow jokes. And we have your application in front of us when we are doing phone interviews. So we don't need or really want that you would repeat information that you've already shared with us. A phone interview, which is true beyond just the Bezos Scholars Program, but interviews generally, is an opportunity to really demonstrate who you are off the page, and to be candid and to be genuine and to be authentic. And so it's less a reiteration and a restating of all of your accomplishments to date and your essays that you've written for us, but more an opportunity to tell us who you are as a human and get to know you a little bit better, and for you to get to know us a little bit better and find out if this is an all-around good fit for everyone involved. So I'm glad that you brought that up, Marcos, because in addition to loving learning for learning's sake and leadership and rigor, we're really looking for people that know who they are and are excited to be that person, which I think is exactly what you said, but is certainly absolutely worth mentioning twice. All right. Okay. I see thank you from everyone. So I think that means that we are at the end of our questions for today. So thank you everyone for your time, Marcos, and attendees as well for tuning in today. I hope that this was illuminating and also has you excited about the process. But if there are any questions that didn't come to mind during this time and they come up later, please feel free just to send them our way. I personally respond to all of those emails in the Scholars at box. So let me know how we can be helpful to you during the process, and hope to see the application before February 9. Thanks very much. Have a good evening, you guys. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.